Let's stop trading and talk to Jim. I'm constantly worried about Taiwan and the potential consequences with China. President La, who took over as president, has shown inconsistency. At one point, he expressed anti-Chinese sentiment, arguing that Taiwan ought to foot the bill. However, there is an intriguing division between Nvidia and Taiwan Semi. Although they always trade together, Taiwan Semi might impose a tariff, which would be detrimental to Nvidia. I would return with the conclusion that Nvidia is a crown jewel, and the president will not oppose it. You shouldn't sell Nvidia on any of this because, in my opinion, the president still appreciates jewelry that doesn't require payment, and the Taiwan Semi relationship will ultimately be maintained. Recall that the CHIPS Act does not apply to them. Additionally, considering that Elon Musk is one of the most influential individuals in the government and that he has stated that he depends heavily on Nvidia, they occasionally have problems since, of course, I believe Elon would prefer to be independent. However, he consistently states, "Boy, they make good chips." Therefore, in my opinion, Nvidia is a winner in this case rather than a loss. Okay, so in general, Jim, you need to keep in mind that the bond markets are in charge tomorrow. There are a few bad auctions that are now taking place. Procter & Gamble suffers when interest rates rise, and the company also suffers when trade conflicts occur. Please keep these 2 points in mind. Thus, I wouldn't purchase Procter just yet. What? What? I see nothing. What's wrong? It is being impacted by both. Well, what about him? Wells Fargo Finance is adored by Blue. I believe the asset cap disappears, and I happen to think, and David, you know I like Charlie better than Jamie, so Charlie Scharf wins. I stated it because JP Morgan was going to call me and ask, "Why did you say that?" It's unnecessary in my opinion, and I haven't even given Anna Boutin any credit because it's true that you prefer Charlie over Jamie. No, it is not personal. It is business-related and has nothing to do with David. She, the new president, is not like me. Mar, I want to thank all of the viewers for their hard work over the past 24 hours. I saw all of the episodes. My wife is watching a different station when I get home. I snatched up the clicker. Come on, guy. I'd like to see how long this guy lasts, I said. This man is trying to set a record. Following a barrage of big tech news, the Nasdaq has finished its worst week since September. Some of that activity has been monitored by Seema Modi. Hello, Seema. Carl, hello. Additionally, semiconductors in particular are attempting to recover from last week's loss of more than $360 billion in market capitalization. The largest laggard, Nvidia, is improving today as we wait for it to be added to the Dow this Friday. Nvidia has also requested that South Korean memory chip manufacturer SK Hynix accelerate the development of its next-generation memory product. It is regarded as an additional piece of evidence confirming the high demand for Nvidia's GPUs. This comes as an increasing number of analysts express concern about the election's wider effects on the semiconductor industry. Nvidia and other companies like Texas Instruments and Qualcomm, who release their earnings this week, will suffer long-term consequences if Vice President Harris wins, according to BFA's calculation of the impact of a higher tax rate. The BFA claims that the possibility of tariffs under former President Trump, which would raise prices for memory and equipment players, is the most possible obstacle. For comparison, the chip industry beat the S&P by 51% on average when a Democrat was in power and 38% when a Republican was. XPI and List Semiconductor will release 2 significant earnings reports tonight, while Supermicro will provide a significant business update tomorrow. Guys, I neglected to mention a crucial piece of information regarding one of the largest stocks on the market, and occasionally the largest, due to its back-and-forth fluctuations with Apple. Naturally, it's Nvidia. Nvidia is entering the Dow, Surat. It will be Friday before the opening bell, as we found out the other day. Just think about that for me. What does the impact of Berkshire's sale on the stock market's movement in relation to Apple mean for the stock market's movement in relation to Nvidia? I believe it maintains its momentum. The significance lies in the fact that Nvidia is replacing Intel and essentially stating, hey, this is a company that is going to be there for a long time. Since not many individuals purchase the Dow index, you won't receive the same good tailwind that you would if it were part of an S&P index. However, The stock benefits greatly from the relevance of this, which indicates that these things will be around for a while. Okay, now in the race for market capitalization, Nvidia is now momentarily surpassing Apple. And there you have it. $3.38 trillion versus $3.389. Nvidia is doing really well because it hasn't finished above Apple on that statistic since June. Thank you very much, but the market capitalization is amazing, and neither is suffering. And we're back. Except for Nvidia, which hasn't released yet, the majority of mega-cap names are down after last week's earnings results. The announcement that the company would enter the Dow this week has caused its shares to rise. The NYU Stern School of Business's head of valuation, Aswath Damodaran, is here to discuss his thoughts on the Magnificent Seven. Welcome back. Seeing you again is pleasant. Scott, thank you. You have now had an opportunity to process these reports as a shareholder and an observer, both of which are important to us. What do you learn from this? These businesses, in my opinion, have mastered the art of manipulating earnings. When you look at them, they come in 2% to 3% above the predictions. Now that they're going to beat it by 2% or 3%, you're wondering why you should even bother setting expectations. The true narrative, in my opinion, lies deeper within the earnings reports. And I believe you can see it in the case of Microsoft, for example, where it is acknowledged that AI has the ability to provide goods and services, but the promise is not being fulfilled in terms of monetization. I then scan the companies, finding no outliers in either direction. But in many respects, I believe that what you should be searching for is a shift in narrative, and that isn't happening at the moment. It's essentially the same narrative that has been driving them for the entire year. Have any of your personal holdings in these names been sold? Since you are both an observer and a stakeholder in many of these names, as I mentioned, I wanted to keep our visitors informed. About a year and a half ago, I sold half of my Nvidia shares, but I haven't raised my stake or traded down in any of them since. By framing it in terms of what I originally paid for these equities rather than what they traded at their peak 3 or 2 months ago, I feel rather comfortable about what I have. The only thing I need to be as an investor is to be comfortable with my own choices, and I'm content with where I am. You got into those names early, which is why you are a professor of finance at the Stern School of Business. How about semis? We brought up Nvidia, which is putting Apple squarely at the top of the market capitalization chain. Although it has undoubtedly had an amazing run, not all of the stocks in this market are Nvidia. How do you evaluate the semifinals? This is the one location where I believe you have truly witnessed leadership truly fracturing or splitting. And this has been the case throughout the spring, summer, and fall. We are aware of Broadcom's and Nvidia's strong charts, but where are Applied Materials? Lam Research's where is ASML? Samsung, where are you? Just 25% of semis are above their 200-day moving average here, which makes it the fastest and weakest under the surface of what is thought to be leadership. For the following 4 to 6 weeks, semis do provide some decent seasonality. In my opinion, if you had a bounce, I would be more likely to fade it rather than chase it in the semifinals. I questioned you about Berkshire selling Apple earlier, so now I'll ask you about Nvidia, its participation in the Dow, and your thoughts on it in light of your observations over the years. Evidently, on some level, the Dow felt a little out of step with the current state of the economy because Intel had been included earlier and Nvidia, which accounts for 7% of the S&P 500, had not been included. One could argue that it is simply clinging to a high momentum play after it has already made its biggest profit. I recently looked at the market capitalization comparison between Apple and Nvidia, and they are currently tied. You could claim that Nvidia's stock is more costly, but it's expanding far faster. In the upcoming year, it will have roughly a third of the sales and half the net income. First of all, just because a stock is listed on the Dow does not provide you a fresh incentive to purchase it in the near future. History claims that